Y'all seen that? Asian Doll just went OFF, straight up exposing Lil Durk. And let me tell you what really went down. This ain't no cap, it's receipts and real talk. She dropped that clip late last night, and social media, it is on fire. People screaming in the comments, he lied about Vaughn. Yeah, that's exactly what she said. And you know how it is when Doll speaks, people listen. Now, before y'all scroll past thinking it's just another rap beef, let me break it down. This ain't just gossip, it's a story buried in the streets. In the loyalty codes, in the way the rap game moves behind the cameras. Folks saying Durk kept quiet about what really happened to King Von. Some say he misled his circle. Others whisper about promises broken and respect lost. And Asian Doll, she's the one shining a flashlight on all of it. Y'all know the drill, the streets remember everything. And the numbers don't lie. Views are skyrocketing, DMIs are blowing up, and the commentary is savage. People are taking sides, some defending, some condemning. But the truth, way deeper than it looks. So lean in close, 'cause we got exclusive insight. Clips, quotes, insider details, the kind nobody else is talking about. And trust me, this ain't just about social media drama. It's about loyalty, betrayal, and the hidden codes that run the rap game. What happened to Vaughn? What did Lil Durk really say or not say? And how does Asian Doll fit in all this chaos? Stick around, 'cause what's coming next is way deeper than it looks. And it's about to change the way you see this whole story. So here's how it all started. And y'all gotta understand, the streets don't forget, they just wait. Asian Doll and Lil Durk had been moving in the same circles for a minute. Industry events, studio sessions, snippets leaked online showing them laughing. Talking business, looking like they were on the same page. But behind the cameras, things were different. Loyalty in Chicago rap isn't just a word, it's survival, it's respect. And when you break it, it gets messy. Some insiders say the tension started over Vaughn. People close to the situation claim that after Vaughn's passing, there were conversations Durk had with members of Vaughn's circle that didn't line up with what everyone else was hearing. Whispers turned into screenshots, and screenshots turned into clips. And before you knew it, the internet had a field day. Asian Doll. She wasn't just reacting, she was strategic. She had a platform, a voice, and she knew exactly how to make it resonate. The clip she dropped was simple, but deadly. A calm, measured breakdown of moments that contradicted Durk's public statements. She didn't scream, didn't curse, just laid it out. You said one thing, but what really happened? We all saw you move different, and immediately, fans started piecing it together. The tension wasn't just about a rumor, it was about truth versus narrative. And in Chicago, narrative is power. Here's the thing, most people don't get. These situations aren't just about music. They're about family, street credibility, and ego. Durk built an empire on loyalty, on being the guy who shows up, who respects the code. So when someone challenges that, especially publicly, it's like shaking the foundation of everything. Asian Doll's words hit deep because she isn't just any rapper or influencer. She's someone who understands the streets and the game. She knows when to speak and when silence says more than words ever could. People close to the scene say the first real fracture came at a studio session months before Doll's clip went viral. The room was small, a downtown spot, dim lights, cameras off, but ears everywhere. Durk was on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. Someone nearby caught fragments. I told them what I had to. That's all. They don't need the full story. The person who overheard it tried to intervene, and that's when the first argument sparked. Words exchanged, voices raised, not screaming, but heavy, deliberate, the kind of argument where trust starts to erode. One line that reportedly cut deep. You said what? I told you about my respect. Another answer? cold as steel. Nah, this ain't over, bro. The air changed after that session. Things that were once unspoken became visible in ways people couldn't ignore. But here's what people don't understand. This wasn't just ego. 'Twas fear. Fear of being misrepresented. Fear of losing face in a city where every move is watched, recorded, and judged. Asian Doll herself admitted in a separate interview that she felt compelled to speak, because silence sometimes protects the wrong person. "I ain't here to make enemies," she said. "I'm here to make sure the story stays true." That line alone sent ripples. For many fans, it framed her not as an instigator, but as a guardian of memory. Someone honoring what Vaughn stood for. Someone making sure loyalty didn't get twisted into lies. As the months passed, leaks started appearing, small clips, conversations taken out of context, texts circulating with annotations from fans dissecting every detail. It escalated faster than anyone anticipated. Members of Vaughn's circle were tagging each other in posts, subtweeting cryptic messages hinting at betrayal and miscommunication. The digital world took it and ran, but the offline world was heavier. Chicago streets have ears, and word travels differently there. People talk, people watch, and the smallest slip can grow into a reputation you can't shake. In between all of this, Asian Doll kept her composure. She posted selectively, her tone never over the top, letting facts and hints speak louder than drama. She reminded the streets and the fans that she wasn't playing. This was accountability. If loyalty means nothing when someone dies, then what's the point? She said in one clip that later went viral. The way she said it, calm but piercing, it felt like a call-out without naming names. A message only people who knew could fully understand. That subtlety, that intelligence, made the story more dangerous for Durk's narrative because it put him in a position where silence might speak louder than words, but also look like guilt. The escalation wasn't just emotional, it was tangible. People close to the situation say Durk started pulling back from some public appearances, messaging certain friends less, avoiding conversations that might get leaked. Meanwhile, Asian Doll's mentions exploded. People were dissecting her every move, every caption, every story, looking for clues. And somewhere in the middle of all that, rumors about betrayal began to harden into assumed facts. Fans started creating timelines, putting together who said what and when, almost like investigators. The story started living online and offline simultaneously. A dangerous combination in the rap world. What really changed the game, though, was a clip that leaked from a private conversation between Doll and another rapper. She's calm, almost conversational. "Look, I'm not here to tear anyone down, but the truth about Vaughn. People gotta hear it. It ain't right what they're saying." That one line lit the fuse. People in Chicago streets, on Twitter, and in Instagram comments began debating like scholars of loyalty. Suddenly, it wasn't just entertainment, it was a moral argument, a question about ethics, honesty, and respect. The tension became philosophical as much as personal. And that's when the story turned from rumor into legend in real time. Here's the thing about moments like this: you see them on camera, in clips, in posts, but the real story happens in between. In whispers, in calls, in the way people look at each other across a table. Friends and associates say that after Doll's clip dropped, there were dozens of private calls, text threads, and meetings trying to contain the fallout. Some people wanted damage control, others wanted clarity. And that's when lines were drawn. People who once moved in the same circles found themselves asking, "Who can I trust?" Loyalty, once taken for granted, became a currency more valuable than money, as the first part of this saga unfolded. One thing was clear. What started as confusion over what happened to Vaughn had become a larger reflection on power, influence, and moral responsibility in Chicago rap. People were watching, learning, and choosing sides. and the people at the center. Durk and Doll navigating public scrutiny, private consequences, and the ever-present weight of history. So that's where we leave it for now. The foundation of tension laid. The first cracks in trust showing, and the streets waiting for the next move. What happens next? How arguments turn into confrontations, and how loyalty is tested in ways fans couldn't even imagine. That's coming up in... The story is only getting darker, deeper, and way more revealing. This ain't just drama, it's a masterclass in power, reputation, and the cost of truth in the game. The tension that started online and in private conversations now started spilling into the real world. Leaks weren't just screenshots anymore, they were voice notes. Snippets of phone calls, behind-the-scenes, studio moments. Chicago streets were buzzing, and everybody had an opinion. Some were siding with Doll, saying she was speaking truth and honoring Von. Others defended Durk, insisting he was being misrepresented, that he had reasons for handling things the way he did. But the truth? Like always, it was somewhere in between, tangled up in ego, fear, and loyalty. The first major escalation happened during a night out in downtown Chicago. Sources say Durk was spotted at a recording session, and Doll was nearby at a different studio. Word got out fast. Social media started blowing up. Fans noticing subtle posts, cryptic captions that seemed to be responses aimed at each other. Some things can't be unsaid. One caption read. Another, allegedly from Durk's camp, said, "Respect isn't built on lies." People online started connecting dots, speculating who was referring to whom. The narrative was spinning out of control, and the streets loved it. One insider described a moment that changed everything. Apparently, Doll called Durk directly after seeing one of his public statements about Von. She was calm but firm. "You can't just put words out there and hope nobody notices the gaps," she said. Durk's reply was curt. "I handled it how I had to. That's all." The conversation ended with a tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. It wasn't just disagreement. It was a clash of moral codes. People close to both camps say that moment made them realize the situation was bigger than they imagined. It wasn't just words online. It was reputation, legacy, and respect on the line. Meanwhile, fans started leaking more info. Old interviews resurfaced. Texts from months prior started circulating. One text, allegedly from a member of Von's circle, said, "He's not being honest about what went down. We all know it." People dissected every word, turning social media into a courtroom. Doll, for her part, stayed strategic. She didn't escalate recklessly. She let clips and carefully worded posts do the talking. "I ain't here to start fights," she said in a story. "I'm here to make sure loyalty isn't forgotten." That sentiment resonated, and more people began siding with her. But here's the thing about escalation. It always gets personal. One night, a mutual friend told Durk that Doll had spoken to someone in Von's circle about inconsistencies in his story. That same friend later heard Durk mutter under his breath, "This ain't over." In Chicago rap circles, words like that carry weight. It's a warning not just to the person on the other line, but to the network watching, listening, and calculating. As the days passed, small confrontations began happening. Not full-blown fights, but moments that carried tension you could feel even through a screen. A producer recalled a studio session where Durk walked in, saw a group of people recording, froze for a second, then left. "Something shifted," the producer said later. The energy in the room changed. People were whispering, watching each other. It was like the air itself knew. Meanwhile, Doll's posts remained calm but pointed. She knew the streets and knew that restraint often spoke louder than aggression. Every story, every snippet, every indirect comment was a chess move. Inside the circle, loyalty was tested in subtle ways. People started asking themselves questions. Who's really telling the truth? Who's standing up for Von's memory? Who's just protecting their own image? Those questions didn't stay private. They leaked into group chats, conversations in cars, meetings at small studios. Friends became analysts, allies became cautious observers. And in that web of observation, reputations could crumble overnight. Then came a turning point that people still talk about. Allegedly, during a late-night studio session, Dahl and one of Von's close friends were having a private discussion when Durk walked in unexpectedly. The room went silent. Dahl didn't flinch. She said calmly, "We're just making sure history's right. Nothing more." Durk responded, cold but measured, "Don't make me say it out loud again." The tension didn't explode physically. But mentally, the stakes had risen. Everyone in the room felt it. One observer said later, that moment changed everything. It wasn't a fight you could see, but it was a fight you could feel. And that's when things started leaking faster. Snippets from that session, subtle gestures, captions interpreted as messages. Fans reading between lines and piecing together what might have happened. The narrative was spiraling into legend, not just because of the people involved, but because of the way truth, loyalty, and ego intersect in Chicago rap. Every fan comment, every reaction video, every podcast mention fueled the story. Dahl's calm voice, contrasted with Durk's calculated responses, made it feel like a documentary in real time. But let's reflect for a second. Here's what most people don't understand about moments like this. It's not just drama or music industry politics. It's psychology. Ego, grief, responsibility, legacy, they all collide, and people move based on fear, pride, and respect. Dahl and Durk weren't just rappers arguing online. They were two figures navigating the weight of Von's memory, the expectations of their circles, and the judgment of millions watching. It's messy, it's human, and it's real in a way social media can never fully capture. Draws to a close, the story reaches a point where everyone is watching and waiting for the next move. Dahl has asserted herself, shown courage, and forced accountability. Durk is navigating scrutiny, defending choices, and managing reputation. The streets, online fans, and industry insiders are all invested. Small moments of hesitation, minor confrontations, and leaked clips are now tipping points, each one capable of swinging public perception. Loyalty is being tested, friendships are strained, and reputations are being reshaped. So that's where we leave it, for the escalation is in full effect. Tensions are raw and stakes are higher than ever. The first cracks have turned into visible fractures. And the next chapter is about to show how far people will go to protect their narrative, their loyalty, and their legacy. The game isn't just about music anymore. It's about morality, memory, and who controls the story. The tension that had been simmering finally started boiling over. What started as whispers and leaked clips had evolved into confrontations and moments that would define loyalty in ways fans couldn't imagine. Chicago streets don't forget, and neither does social media. Every move, every gesture, every post was being watched, recorded, dissected, and debated. The energy had shifted. The game had changed. It started with a quiet meeting at a downtown studio. Dahl was there with a few close allies of Von, and Durk's team was across the city, aware of the gathering through word of mouth. According to sources, there was an unspoken tension in the air, a feeling that someone might overstep, that a line might be crossed. Dahl's voice was calm, almost measured. "We're here for Von, for the truth. If anyone's gonna lie, let it be me, not him." The words weren't loud, but they carried weight, echoing in the minds of everyone present. Meanwhile, Durk was moving cautiously. People close to him say he was juggling public image, private calls, and the pressure from Von's circle. He reportedly called a mutual friend and said, "I can't let this look like I'm hiding anything." But I ain't letting it get twisted either. That line, simple as it seems, encapsulated the tightrope he was walking. Defend yourself, manage loyalty, and navigate grief, all at the same time. The stakes were higher than ever. The first confrontation happened online, subtly but dramatically. A clip of Dahl talking about loyalty and honesty surfaced, tagged by fans as a response to one of Durk's posts. People noticed Durk's reaction. He didn't respond publicly, but his story that night was quiet, almost withdrawn. The contrast was glaring. Dahl was calm but assertive. Durk was measured but distant. The streets interpreted it immediately, debating on every forum, every comment section, who's in the right. But the real intensity came in private. Sources say a heated phone call occurred between Dahl and Durk. One of those conversations where every pause, every word, every breath is loaded. Dahl reportedly said, "You think loyalty is about convenience? It ain't. People died for respect, not tweets." Durk's reply, terse and calculated. "I know what I owe, and I'm handling it. You don't got to approve." The call ended. But the ripple effects didn't. Friends and associates say that after the call, trust was visibly fractured. And every interaction afterward carried that weight. As the tension escalated, emotional beats became undeniable. Grief, anger, pride, and fear collided. Members of Vaughn's circle admitted feeling torn, respect for Durk, but also a need for accountability. Dahl became a figure of moral authority, forcing people to confront uncomfortable truths about what had happened and what had been said. It wasn't just about him or her. It was about how loyalty and truth intersect in a city where reputation is survival. Some of the most revealing moments came through conversations captured off the record. One insider described a meeting where Durk and Dahl were in the same building, never face to face, but aware of each other's presence. The tension was electric, the source said. They didn't need to speak. Just seeing each other, knowing what was said and what wasn't. It was like a duel of respect and intent. In those quiet moments, loyalty was being weighed, alliances were being reconsidered, and reputations were being carved in real time. The turning point, according to multiple sources, was a leak that caught the industry by storm. A snippet of a conversation between Durk and a member of Vaughn's circle surfaced online, in which Durk admitted certain things had been miscommunicated, but the clip cut off before full context. The public exploded. Fans were debating, analyzing, and forming their own narratives. Dahl's response was strategic. She posted a calm message about accountability and respect, letting the clip speak for itself without escalation. The contrast made the story more compelling. One side calm, the other side under scrutiny, and the streets eating it all up. And that's when small acts of defiance started showing up in subtle ways. Dahl would tag locations, subtly hint at studio sessions, and fans would interpret them as statements of presence and influence. Durk's responses were quieter, less direct, but the energy was there, understood by those who knew the history. Every move became a chess piece. The tension wasn't loud or violent, but it was unmistakable, a silent battle for narrative. Dominance. Here's a reflection that matters. Moments like this aren't just drama. They're a study in human behavior. People navigate fear, ego, and loyalty differently. Dahl moved strategically, with clarity and purpose. Durk moved cautiously, calculating risk and perception. The people around them were forced to observe, to choose sides, and to act according to their own moral compass. The streets weren't just watching music. They were watching ethics, respect, and survival. The aftermath of this escalation became visible in subtle but impactful ways. Collaboration slowed, mutual associates became distant, and industry insiders started speculating about long-term alliances. Dahl's influence rose, Her reputation strengthened among those who valued truth and accountability. Durk's position, while still powerful, had to adapt to the scrutiny, the questions, and the persistent presence of Dahl's voice in the conversation. The balance of power shifted, not violently, but perceptibly. And yet, the bigger picture remained. This story isn't just about two people or one clip. It's about how loyalty, truth, and legacy intersect in a world where reputation is everything. Dahl's actions forced conversations that many had avoided, and Durk's responses highlighted the complexity of leadership, influence, and accountability in the rap game. The city of Chicago, fans online, and the industry at large were all participants. Whether they realized it or not, the story reaches its emotional apex. The confrontation has happened in whispers, in leaks, in private calls, and the consequences are unfolding. Dahl has asserted moral authority. Durk has navigated scrutiny, and the streets are watching, interpreting, and judging every move. Loyalty has been tested, reputations have been challenged, and the narrative is no longer controllable by any single person. So that's where we leave the turning point established. The aftermath beginning, and the bigger picture coming into focus. The next chapter will show the full fallout, the consequences on relationships, reputation, and the lessons about loyalty, truth, and leadership that ripple through Chicago rap and beyond. The story is far from over, and the next part will reveal how deep this saga really goes. The smoke from all the confrontations and leaks had started to settle, but the aftermath was heavy, almost tangible. Chicago streets had been watching. Fans online were dissecting every post, and the industry was taking notes. The story wasn't just a headline anymore. It had evolved into a case study in loyalty, truth, and power. Dahl and Durk had navigated the storm, but the ripples of their actions were now unavoidable, stretching far beyond their immediate circles. One of the most striking things about this phase was how quiet moments spoke louder than the loud ones. A producer close to both camps described a late-night studio visit where Dahl arrived. Not with fanfare, but with intention. She didn't have to say anything, the producer said. Just being there, showing up for Von, it told people more than any post could. Durk, meanwhile, had begun recalibrating. He was quieter, more calculated, making sure each move was measured, each word chosen. The city had changed the rules, subtlety had become power. Relationships that had been taken for granted were now fragile. Alliances shifted. Friends of Von, who had once stayed neutral, began taking sides. Some openly supporting Dahl, some defending Durk. Every dinner, every car ride, every studio session carried unspoken tension. One insider recalled a moment where a mutual friend of both Dahl and Durk quietly said, "I feel like we're watching history being rewritten, and nobody knows the ending yet." That sentiment captured the essence of this phase. Everyone was watching. But no one could predict the final outcome. Emotional beats intensified in private moments. Dahl was reflective, speaking to close allies about what loyalty and accountability truly meant. "It's bigger than us," she said. "It's about respect for the people who can't speak for themselves." Durk, in private conversations, seemed to wrestle with perception versus intention, saying, "I handled it how I had to, but now everybody's watching, and every step counts." These private reflections revealed the human cost of public scrutiny. Grief, pride, and responsibility all intersecting in ways that were often invisible to the casual observer. Publicly, the story continued to evolve through leaks, clips, and subtle posts. Dahl maintained a consistent narrative, accountability, respect, and memory. Durk's strategy was to remain composed, responding only when necessary and letting his actions speak. One leaked conversation hinted at reconciliation possibilities, but it was careful, tentative, and layered with unspoken tension. The streets picked up on this immediately, analyzing tone, word choice, and timing. Every nuance mattered. and the game had become psychological as much as it was musical. There were moments when the stakes became almost tangible. At one studio, Durk reportedly stopped mid-session, noticing a subtle post from Dahl tagging a location that carried emotional significance. He paused, thinking about the implications, then returned to the session with renewed focus. That moment, small as it might seem, reflected the power of presence and perception in the modern rap game. Influence isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, strategic, and emotionally precise. As the aftermath unfolded, the bigger picture started to reveal itself. Dahl's actions had forced a conversation that had long been avoided: how the memory of Von is honored, how loyalty is tested, and how truth intersects with public perception. Durk's responses highlighted the delicate balance of influence and accountability, how leaders navigate criticism while maintaining authority. The intersection of grief, loyalty, and public scrutiny became a classroom for anyone observing, teaching lessons about character, strategy, and reputation. But here's the critical reflection most people miss. This story isn't just about Dahl or Durk or even Von. It's about the structures of trust and loyalty in environments where respect is currency. It's about how words, actions, and intentions are dissected by a network of observers, both online and on the streets. It's about understanding that leadership isn't just about power or fame. It's about navigating morality under pressure, making decisions that carry consequences far beyond what anyone can control. Some of the final confrontations were subtle, yet meaningful. An insider described a quiet studio moment where Dahl and Durk were in adjacent rooms, each aware of the other's presence but not interacting directly. It wasn't a showdown, the insider said. It was a recognition this isn't about ego anymore. It's about history, memory, and respect. Both of them knew the weight of what they were carrying. In that silence, more was said than any argument or social media post could communicate. Industry observers began analyzing the long-term implications. Dahl's reputation for integrity and strategic calm had risen. Durk's ability to navigate scrutiny and maintain his base had been tested but remained strong. Both had shown different forms of leadership, one through assertive, moral authority, the other through calculated resilience. The streets, online fans, and industry watchers were all learning, witnessing a masterclass in how loyalty, perception, and influence intersect in a high-stakes environment. The final emotional beat came from the way both sides reflected on Von's legacy. Dahl spoke openly about honoring his memory, while Durk, in private moments, considered how his actions would be remembered. The story reaches a point of reflection. The confrontation has passed its most intense moments. The aftermath is settling, and the broader implications are clear. Loyalty is tested. Reputation is fragile, and influence is measured not just by words, but by actions, presence, and moral clarity. Dahl and Durk have each navigated challenges in their own ways, teaching lessons that go beyond music and into life, leadership, and legacy. This is where the main body concludes the full arc, from foundation, escalation, turning point to aftermath, has been revealed. The story shows how loyalty, truth, and power play out in a world where every action is observed and every word carries weight. The streets, the fans, and the industry have witnessed a saga that blends grief, strategy, and morality into a living lesson on respect and leadership. And now, as we step back from all the drama, leaks, and confrontations, it's time to think about what this story really means. What happened between Dahl and Durk isn't just gossip or social media noise. It's a lesson in loyalty, accountability, and how influence works in the streets and in the music industry. Every post, every clip, every quiet moment carried weight. It showed how grief, pride, and responsibility collide, and how the choices people make in the spotlight can define them far beyond their careers. Loyalty isn't just about standing next to someone when things are easy. It's about standing up for truth, holding people accountable, and navigating moments where ego, money, and family collide. Dahl's strategy was deliberate, calm, and calculated, proving that moral authority can be just as powerful as influence or fame. Durk's approach showed the complexity of leadership under scrutiny, managing perception, maintaining trust, and